You didn't leave it to the police force, did you? You got directly involved. You told at one point police to shoot protesters in the legs. Surely live fire is not something that should be used in protest. Do you regret those comments?
I don't regret those comments at all.
A journalist from Al Jazeera embarrassed President William Ruto again. It was supposed to be a simple interview, but it became a mirror of a nation's unease.
You say independent. You're telling the police to shoot protesters in the legs. That sounds like you're ordering the police.
No, there is nowhere in the law that allows me to order the police.
In this quiet, Al Jazeera said, President William Ruto has faced questions the world had been asking, whispering about power, truth, and the cost of loyalty. His words were calm, his tone presidential, but behind every pause, behind every carefully chosen sentence, there was something else, a tremor.
You can never get 96%.
So it's not a democracy anymore then?
That is you saying. It's every country have a way of them doing their stuff.
There are also allegations that you're involved in getting arms to the RSF. The Sudanese army says you're involved with the UAE and you're shipping arms
to them.
That is
absolutely false.
When a leader speaks to the world, he is not just answering a journalist. He is answering a history itself. And today, the red might go beyond the headlines. We dissect the silences, the smiles, and the contradictions. Was this a masterclass in political communication or a carefully staged illusion for international eyes? Welcome to the Red Mic. This is where we don't just watch interviews, we unmask them. So stay with us, because by the end of this video, you will never hear Ruto's Al Jazeera words the same way again.
You have presented a very comprehensive picture of what you say are your achievements. You talked a lot there about young people.
Correct.
But the young people don't all seem to share that rosy assessment of where things are. You mentioned protests about food prices in 2023. There were protests again, large protests in 2024 and again this summer in 2025. Those protests in June spread, met with a most violent crackdown. 65 people died in the clashes. Was that mishandled?
President William Ruto was asked, Mr. President, Kenya has seen months of protests, accusations of brutality, and an economy under pressure. Is your government still in control?
There are many aspects of that protest. There are people who genuinely are there to express their opinions, different opinions, but there are also criminal elements. People who come to burn down buildings, destroy properties, steal from all manner of places, supermarkets, and many of those. And the public itself, by the way, the public went up in arms because they said, these are not protests, this is looting, this is criminality.
This question was very sharp, but the answer was smoother than silk. Kenya, President Ruto said, it remains a functioning democracy. Every citizen has a right to protest, but within the law. This sounded polished, measured, almost rehearsed, yet behind those calm syllables, an entire generation of restless voices could be heard. The youth who fill Nairobi streets not with weapons, but with questions. When a president begins by defining the boundaries of freedom, it is really about peace. It is about control. Because democracy, when filtered through power, it becomes a word with conditions.
Because the law allows the police to use force when other people's lives are in danger.
Surely there are ways of doing that without using live ammunition.
That is according to you. I think the police know what they need to do. And the police, by the way, understand that it is within their purview. That is why when I came into office, I ensured that the police was independent. The police carried out their responsibilities independently.
You say independent, you're telling the police to shoot protesters in the legs. That sounds like you're ordering the police.
No, there is nowhere in the law that allows me to order the police. Today, there are no incidences of Kenyans that are executed.
In this moment, President William Ruto isn't just speaking to Al Jazeera. He is speaking to Washington, Brussels, Beijing, assuring them that Kenya was still the stable partner, the reliable gateway, the investment hub of East Africa. But let us ask this. Stability built on fear is not peace. It is silence. When the cameras cut to the streets of Nairobi, a different story speaks. A story that no international interview can polish away. The story of a youth that feels betrayed by its own promises. A working class crushed by taxes it never voted for. A generation whose trust has evaporated like morning dew in the Nairobi sun. And yet, at that Al Jazeera table, the president frames dissent as disorder and calm as progress. That is the classic art of political theater, to turn outrage into optics and rebellion into rhetoric.
Now, the protesters are all young. They're the Gen Z. They are the people who led were the engine of your campaign. And you've lost a lot of those people who were fighting for you and believed you were the man to deliver change. Can you regain their trust, do you think?
They have since discovered that every commitment I made, including how to empower the young people, from education to creating jobs, to making sure that there is health, to making sure that we have food, I have kept my commitment. And the entire country today, many people will tell you, the debate is no longer whether William Ruto has delivered. That debate is closed.
Mr. President, I accept what you're saying, but it doesn't match the polling of Kenyans. A recent poll said 62% of Kenyans feel the country is heading in the wrong direction.
Kenya has seen this scene before. When President Moi spoke to BBC in 1991, he too promised reforms. This came while students were tear gas outside Parliament. When Kibaki defended his record on CNN, he too insisted that Kenya was moving forward. And now, President Ruto sits under the same studio lights, repeating a verse written long ago. He says we are a democracy. But democracy is not declared. Democracy is lived.
The other thing they complain about, the protesters, is corruption. What are you doing?
Absolutely everything. I did sign the law that prohibits public officers to participate in doing business with government, what we call the Conflict of Interest Bill. Now it is law. I did sign this into law 3 months ago. We have deployed additional resources to the anti-corruption agency. We have deployed additional resources to the Director of Public Prosecution. We have hired more judges. I think I've hired the most judges than any president in 3 years to make sure that the criminal justice system, the judiciary, is properly enabled to deal with all manner of issues, especially corruption.
Asking about corruption, the journalist asked, Mr. President, you have promised to fight corruption. What concrete steps have you taken? President smiled, the kind of a smile that leaders use when they believe the world is listening. He said, we are fighting corruption. I have stopped government officers from doing business with government. I have hired more judges to tame graft. The words rolled out like a sermon, confident, rehearsed, very righteous. But behind that calm declaration lies a truth the cameras rarely capture.
Whether William Ruto has delivered. That debate is closed.
Mr. President, I accept what you're saying, but it doesn't match the polling of Kenyans. A recent poll said 62% of Kenyans feel the country is heading in the wrong direction.
Yes, President Ruto signed the Conflict of Interest Act this year, a law meant to end the dirty dance between public office and private profit. And yes, Ruto's government has appointed new judges, 20 of them sworn last year. Another wave is yet to be sworn in. On paper, these are steps toward integrity. But laws and robes do not cleanse a nation. For every new statue, there is an old network, invisible hands trading influence in the corridors of procurement, tenders, and tenders within tenders. But here is the truth. Kenya's corruption index has not moved. Still, it is hovering in the lower half of the world rankings. Reports from AfriCOG, Transparency International, and investigative journalists tell a quieter story. Contracts inflated, funds unaccounted for, cases opened, then quietly buried. Even now, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission investigates scandals worth billions, while convictions remain a trickle. not a tide. So when the president tells Al Jazeera that corruption is being tamed, one must ask, is it the thieves who are cornered or merely the truth? Because anti-corruption is more than a speech. It is sacrifice. It means confronting friends, not enemies. It means tracing stolen billions without fear of political oxygen. And that is where the story goes quiet. More judges, yes. But justice delayed remains justice denied. More laws, yes. But law without courage is just decoration. Kenya's corruption fight is not a matter of ink or ceremony. It is a matter of will. Because corruption is not fought by policy. It is fought by conscience. And conscience, unlike a press conference, it cannot be staged. Until justice is louder than convenience, Kenya will keep repeating this chorus. We are fighting corruption, even as the audience walks away unconvinced.
In Kenya is because the picture of democracy in East Africa doesn't look particularly good. We have recent elections in Tanzania, your neighbour. The president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, the winner, declared 97% support. That's like North Korea. Is there still democracy in Tanzania?
It's not for me to judge Tanzania. It is...
it seems a bit fishy, 97%, doesn't it?
Well, in a democracy, for example, in Kenya, you can never get 96%.
So it's not a democracy anymore then?
That is you saying. Every country have a way of them doing their stuff.
When the interviewer asked President Ruto about the Tanzanian election, where President Samia Suluhu Hassan claimed over 97% of the vote, the room held its breath. Ruto chose diplomatic wording. He said, it is not for me to judge Tanzania. Every country has a way of doing their stuff. Then he pointed back to Kenya. Well, in a democracy, for example, in Kenya, you can never get 96%. In that single moment, the conversation was no longer about Kenya alone. It became about the fragile promise of democracy across East Africa.
Work together to ensure that we protect democracy.
So look at one of your other neighbors, Uganda.
So I think we should stick to democracy, and we must always give ourselves the opportunity to listen to the alternative view, to look at the alternative without injecting violence into the equation.
Tanzania's result, 97.66%. Opposition leaders buried, protests erupted, internet outages, the echo for democracy in question. For Ruto to say each country has a way, this is very true, but also very convenient, because the deeper question was, is the 97% a legitimate way of getting to presidency? When an election becomes a mimicry of numbers, when the margin resembles a coffin lid closing on dissent, the value of choice dies invisible.
Look at one of your other neighbours, yes. Uganda. Elections coming up very soon. President Museveni has been there for nearly 4 decades, and there were real questions about whether there were free and fair elections last time. His opponent, Bobby Wine, was under effective house arrest. How worried are you about those elections and whether they're going to be free and fair? Because this affects the climate of the whole region, does it not?
I attended President Museveni's swearing in last election, and I think he got 57% of the vote. He didn't get 90. So I think there is room for us to work on democracy is work in progress, and I think it spans different stages. There are countries like Kenya that are way ahead. There are others that are catching up. There are others that are still not yet started.
And then William Ruto turned to Uganda. He recalled the 2021 vote. He said Museveni got 57%. He didn't get 90%. That mention wasn't casual. It was pointing at the scale of difference between a plausible result and one that looks pre-written. East African democracy today stands at a fork. Will it be the open field or the locked gate? Will young Kenyans, Ugandans, Tanzanians accept the narrative of 90+% victories, Or will they mirror the streets of Nairobi and Dar es Salaam and ask why? East Africa now walks on fragile ground. Kenya heading to 2027, Uganda to another coronation, Tanzania to another unopposed dawn. The leaders speak of peace, yet silence grounds where truth once lived. But history has a beat. It always returns to collect its debts. The youth who watched Al Jazeera tonight will not forget. They will remember the smiles, the versions, the empty promises, and one day they will answer back not with stones, but with a new kind of courage, because democracy is not built by governments. It is reclaimed by generations that refuse to kneel. And when that day comes, no interview, no power, no title will hide from the people's verdict. This is the red mic.
Mr. President, you've now been in power for 3 years. We've talked about the protests, we've talked about the police response. The next election's less than 2 years away in 2027. Is democracy in Kenya safe in your hands?
Absolutely. Democracy in Kenya is not about a person. It's not about the president. It's about the people. The people of Kenya are Democrats. Their DNA is democratic. And therefore, not the president, not anybody can stop Kenya from being a democratic country.